All right, good morning, guys. So we're starting out today with going over the assignment from yesterday. So if you looked at this yesterday, you saw that there was a picture of looks like a sunflower undergoing photosynthesis. Um, and then you had a little information and you were supposed to answer these questions. So let's go through the questions really quickly. So it says in the space below, write the chemical equation used to show photosynthesis. So what you should have, and you could write it in symbols or you can write it out in words, however you wanted to do that. Carbon dioxide plus water yields glucose and oxygen. So above the yields, you should have a sun, picture of a sun, or in some way indicating that energy needs to be added there. Okay. The raw materials, or in other words, what we put into photosynthesis, should be carbon dioxide and water. And again, you can write those out as symbols or as words, it doesn't matter. The products of photosynthesis were glucose and oxygen. That's what was produced, what was created. Explain why sunlight is written above the arrow instead of either side of it. Okay, so we went through this yesterday. So in the universe, there's two big categories. Everything is either going to be matter or energy. So if it's not a form of matter, it cannot go on either side of the arrow in a chemical equation. Since the sunlight is a form of energy, we can't put it on either the product or the reactant side, even though it needs to be there in order for the reaction to go. What I would love to do is put it on the raw materials or the reactant side because you need it to make it go. But because it's a form of energy, you can't do that. It has to go above the yield sign. So where in the plant does photosynthesis occur? Mostly in the leaves. Leaves are shaped like little solar panels, right? They're broad, they're flat. The idea behind them is to collect as much sun energy as possible. Leaves will actually orient themselves to be facing the sun. So that is what they're basically for. In terms of these pictures, it says graph A tells us that as light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis decreases. That is not true. That is not what that graph tells us at all. If you look at the graph, it tells us mostly that as light increases, photosynthesis increases as well. And then towards the end, it seems like it's about to flatten out pretty good there. But it definitely doesn't tell us that it decreases. 7, explain what graph C is telling us about the rate of photosynthesis as it relates to temperature. If you look at the picture, what it's showing you here is this is x-axis is showing the rise in temperature, and then rate of photosynthesis is on the y. So the idea here is that at both extreme ends of temperature, both at very cold temperatures and very warm temperatures, photosynthesis isn't happening at too great of a rate, and that the rate of photosynthesis is actually like optimal or prime somewhere in the middle is what it's showing you there. Does a Venus flytrap undergo photosynthesis to make its own food, even though it consumes flies? Of course, it doesn't just consume flies, but other insects. In fact, if you watch this video, I think it was eating a cockroach. But it does undergo photosynthesis. It's a green plant. It uses its other abilities as a supplement to nutrition. Okay, all right, that was that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was respiration today. So let's get to that quickly. So we talked about photosynthesis yesterday. Respiration is just the opposite reaction to photosynthesis. The one thing we have to clear up right away, though, is this idea that this respiration that we're talking about today is breathing. That has to do with things like the respiratory system, which is all about the lungs and your breathing. In fact, the COVID-19 virus that is keeping us all at home right now is a respiratory illness, so it does affect your lungs. But in this context, we're talking about cellular respiration. So We're talking about respiration on the level of the cell inside of the mitochondria. Okay, so try to forget about breathing. Of course, you do need to breathe in order to undergo cellular respiration, but we're not just talking about breathing at this point. So the definition of cellular respiration is when energy is obtained by a breakdown of food molecules. So we're breaking down the food that we eat and the air that we breathe and turning it into usable energy for the body. And of course, usable energy for the body is ATP. We should all know that by now, right? Okay, so respiration occurs in both plant and animal cells. You should recognize right away that one is animal, one is plant. Look at that huge vacuole and the chloroplast and the squareness. That should be easy. So in order for cells to undergo respiration, they require glucose from the food that you eat and oxygen from the air that you breathe. So the chemical formula looks just like this. This little arrow right there, it should be a little bigger, I guess. That's the yields arrow. So we've got sugar and oxygen, yields carbon dioxide and water and ATP. If you're smart, which I know you are, you already noticed that this is the exact opposite reaction to photosynthesis. The only thing that is different is the location of the energy in the equation. So in photosynthesis, the energy was located above the arrow, the yield sign, because the energy came from the sun. In this situation, the energy is tagged on here to the products because we have created usable energy for the body. Adenosine triphosphate, that's usable energy for the body. We've talked about that quite a bit. It's kind of like, to simplify it a bit, it's kind of like thinking of it as being like the body's money, or how the body pays for everything. So there's the equation again. Energy is used for lots of things: to repair cells, to reproduce cells, to build new cell parts. Your body expends ATPs to do almost everything. And then finally, just a little comparison here. If you look at this comparison, it really kind of highlights how these two reactions are opposite each other. So if we look at the point of the reactions, like the function, why the reaction happens, photosynthesis is for energy capture, capturing energy from the sun and having the plant using it to create food. Energy release, which happens in cellular respiration, is the exact opposite. It's taking the energy that's locked up in glucose and releasing it. So two different processes opposite of each other. For photosynthesis, the location is the chloroplast. For cellular respiration, it's mostly the mitochondria, and then a little bit of it happens in the cytoplasm. But if you're asked for the organelle responsible for cellular respiration, it will be the mitochondria. So if you look at reactants and products, they're opposite each other. The reactant for photosynthesis are the products for cellular respiration. The products for photosynthesis are the reactants for cellular respiration. So they are opposites. Okay, that's it for now.